I never thought grief could have a sound. But on the morning after Gary's funeral, it did. It was the hollow echo of my garage door sliding open, a sound that felt too big for a woman standing alone in a house meant for two. I stood there holding Gary's old Toyota Camry keys, the metal still warm from too many memories. Everyone had gone home the night before. Neighbors who brought casseroles, church ladies who whispered pity, even my son Dylan and his wife who left early because the baby had a schedule. Now it was just me. Me? And the silence. The Camry sat exactly where Gary had parked it the week before he died. The dust on the hood looked almost like fingerprints he forgot to wipe away. I placed my hand on it, half expecting to feel his warmth. Instead, it was cold. Too cold. That was when the hook dropped into my life, long before I knew it was a hook. The night before he passed, Gary whispered, barely audible, "If anything ever happens, check the glove box." I thought he meant registration papers or a spare church bulletin, something small, something ordinary, and I, foolishly, naively, never opened it. A car door slammed outside, snapping me back to the present. Dylan walked into the garage, scrolling through his phone, barely glancing at me. "Mom," he said, "we need to talk about downsizing, maybe selling some stuff. Dad left things messy. He said it like Gary's whole life was a cluttered drawer. "I'm not selling the car," I replied softly. Dylan sighed loudly, the way he used to when he was a teenager. "Mom, you barely drive. Insurance costs money. It's just sitting here." He tapped the hood like it was junk metal. The sting ran deep. But I didn't argue. Grief steals your words before it steals anything else. Just then, Lily, my young neighbor who'd come to the funeral, poked her head into the garage. She carried a box of leftover sandwiches from the reception and, in her usual clumsy way, tripped over the broom leaning by the wall. Sandwiches flew everywhere. Dylan groaned. "Seriously?" But Lily just burst out laughing at herself, and for a moment, the heaviness cracked. I laughed too, half choking on tears, but it was the first warm feeling I'd had in days. "You okay, Miss Marlene?" she asked, brushing crumbs off her shirt. "Yes, honey," I said, though the ache in my chest said otherwise. That night, after Dylan left, I sat alone in the living room. The cushions where Gary used to sit still had the faint shape of his body. I stared at them until the room blurred. The Camry sat silent in the garage. The glove box waited, and Gary's final words echoed like a quiet knock I wasn't ready to answer. But soon, I would have no choice. The weeks after the funeral felt like living underwater. Everything slow, muffled, heavy. I tried to keep busy in ways Gary would have recognized, watering the front yard plants, wiping the kitchen counters the way he liked, taking short drives in the Camry to keep the engine warm. Every morning I stopped by the small Starbucks next to the grocery store. Gary had left a $25 gift card in his wallet, and I told myself I'd use it slowly, like stretching out a memory. I ordered a tall coffee, nothing special, and sat by the window watching families rush by. I used to be part of that rush. Now I watched from behind the glass. One afternoon, I returned home to find Dylan sitting on my couch with his laptop open, papers spread everywhere. Haley stood beside him, arms crossed like she was presenting a slideshow. "Mom, we need to rearrange some bills," Dylan said. "It'll be easier if a few things go under my account. Everything's online now." I sat down slowly. "I can handle my own bills." "Mom," he said, forcing a smile, "you still write checks?" Haley chimed in. "Most seniors don't realize how vulnerable they are to scams. This is just to protect you." Seniors. I swallowed hard. They spoke like I wasn't in the room. I reached for the water glass on the coffee table. My hand brushed it too fast, and the whole thing toppled over, spilling into Dylan's laptop bag. Haley gasped. Dylan jumped up. I froze. Then something surprising happened. Dylan's toddler, little Max, toddled over, dipped his chubby hand into the water puddle, and slapped it onto Dylan's pant leg like it was a game. Haley shrieked. Max giggled. I bit my lip trying not to laugh. The tension popped like a balloon. Even Dylan cracked a reluctant smile while blotting his pants with a couch pillow. "See?" I said softly. "Accidents happen, we all manage." For a moment Haley's face softened, but only for a moment. That night, after they left, I retreated to the garage. I sat in the Camry with the door slightly open, listening to Florida's humid night pressing against the quiet. Gary used to hum old country songs on our drives, sometimes offbeat, sometimes off-key. I missed that terribly. I reached toward the glove box again, feeling the weight of that unopened mystery, but before my fingers touched it, my phone buzzed. It was Dylan. "Don't forget to sign those forms tomorrow. It'll help. Trust me." My stomach tightened. Something about that message felt off, but I pushed the feeling aside. The next morning, I drove to the grocery store. When I came out, Lily was standing beside my car, waving her phone like she'd discovered buried treasure. "Miss Marlene, look," she said. "I finally figured out how to edit photos. Well, I think." She showed me a picture of my Camry, except she had accidentally pasted a giant cartoon donut floating above it. A pink donut, with sprinkles. She turned beet red. I swear it wasn't supposed to look like that. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the car for balance. It felt good, too good, like a breath I had been holding for weeks. As we laughed, Dylan's text replayed in my mind, and the glove box felt heavier than ever. I didn't notice how quickly things were shifting until the afternoon. Dylan announced he had great news and showed up at my house with the confidence of a man who had already made a decision. He stood in the doorway, carrying a stack of printouts. Haley hovered behind him, nodding as if she were his silent cheerleader. "Mom," he began, "I've been thinking. The Camry's just sitting in the garage and you barely use it. I found someone interested in buying it. Good price, too. I can handle the whole process for you." I froze. The Camry wasn't just a car. It was Gary's smell, Gary's music, Gary's breath on the steering wheel after long drives. Selling it felt like erasing him. "I'm not ready," I whispered. Dylan sighed dramatically. "Mom, you said that about cleaning out Dad's closet. You said that about canceling his gym membership. You can't hold on to everything." Haley chimed in. "Letting go is healthy." She said it like she'd read the line off a mug. "I'm keeping the car," I said more firmly. Dylan frowned, then gathered his papers. "Think about it. It's not safe for you to drive much anyway." That part stung more than it should. Later that week, my neighbor Mrs. Jennings invited me out for a small lunch at a family restaurant down the street. She was in her late 70s and moved slower than Florida humidity, but she had a kind spirit. I accepted. I needed the distraction. When we arrived, the waitress was a college kid who looked half asleep. She brought water, menus, and somehow a single chicken wing on a saucer, completely unrelated to anything we ordered. Mrs. Jennings squinted at it. "Did we ask for this?" the waitress gasped. "Oh my gosh, that's my lunch. I accidentally delivered it. Ignore that, please. Pretend that never happened." Her horror-stricken face made both of us chuckle. A small, harmless moment of chaos, exactly the kind Gary would have whispered a joke about if he were here. But my laughter faded when Mrs. Jennings leaned forward and lowered her voice. "I heard your son's been busy with your affairs," she said gently. "You be careful, honey. Not everyone's intentions stay pure when money gets involved." I stiffened. It was one thing to feel it quietly in my chest, another to hear a neighbor say it aloud. Later that evening, Lily knocked on my door. She had a baked potato in a container, experimenting for the restaurant's new menu, she claimed, but it collapsed into mush the moment she opened the lid. She blushed. Maybe not good enough for customers yet." I laughed. A real laugh. "Maybe it's a good soup." We improvised, adding broth, pepper, and a bit of cheese. It actually turned into something delicious, and Lily beamed like she'd just won a cooking show. But when she left, the house felt heavy again. I walked into the garage, touched the Camry's hood, and finally admitted something quietly to myself. Dylan wasn't just worried. He was circling me. The glove box stayed shut. But my fear opened wide. I should have trusted my instincts the moment Dylan said he wanted me to meet a friend who could help organize things. But when you're a mother, you keep giving your child more credit than they've earned. The meeting took place in a small office above a strip mall, a place that smelled faintly of carpet glue and reheated burritos. Dylan seemed oddly proud as he held the door open. "This is Trevor," he said, introducing a man with slick hair and a smile too sharp to be friendly. "He helps families streamline their assets." Streamline. That was the word Dylan used when he cleaned out his bedroom at 15 and accidentally threw away the electric bill. I sat down slowly while Trevor talked fast, too fast, about consolidating accounts, transferring property titles for efficiency, and letting Dylan manage things more securely online. Every sentence sounded like it had one too many promises tucked inside. When people reach a certain age, Trevor started. I raised a brow. A certain age, Trevor coughed. I mean, retirement stage. Dylan shifted uncomfortably. I folded my hands. I haven't retired from taking care of myself. For a moment, silence. Then Haley, who had been scrolling her phone, leaned forward with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. We're just looking out for you. You forget things sometimes. Everyone forgets things, I said. Last week Dylan forgot his child at daycare until they called him. Twice. Dylan shot me a horrified look. Trevor blinked. Haley choked on her iced coffee. I hadn't meant it to be funny, but the way Haley sputtered and grabbed for napkins made even the tension flinch. A corner of my mouth lifted. But the seriousness returned quickly when Trevor slid a stack of papers toward me. If you sign these, he said, Dylan can simplify all your accounts. Much less hassle for you. I scanned the top page. Words like authorization, transfer, property interest swam across the paper. My pulse quickened. I'm not signing anything today, I said firmly. Dylan exhaled, frustrated. Mom, please, it's just paperwork. That's the problem, I replied. Everything sounds like just paperwork until it isn't. Trevor forced another smile. Maybe look it over at home. I gathered the papers, thanked him politely, and left the office before Dylan could argue. Outside, the afternoon sun felt harsher than usual. I walked slowly toward the parking lot, the papers pressed against my chest. Dylan hurried to keep up. Mom, you're overreacting, he said. No, I answered quietly. I'm thinking. That evening, I stopped by the park near my house, hoping the fresh air would settle my nerves. While I sat on a bench, Lily called. You okay? She asked. You left early today. I told her everything. Trevor, the papers, the push to sign. She listened, shock clear in her voice. When I finished, she blurted, Miss Marlene, please don't sign anything. That man sounds like the type who'd sell his own shoes twice. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a small, startled laugh, because the image was ridiculous and yet somehow accurate. Lily came running to the park minutes later with a bag of fries, declaring, emergency comfort carbs. But on her way to sit down, she tripped over absolutely nothing and the fries went flying like confetti. A little boy nearby cheered. Do it again. Lily groaned. I am never living this down. Her embarrassment made me laugh again, but my heart still felt tight. As I helped her pick up the remaining fries, I whispered to myself, something is wrong. And Gary's glove box, I wasn't sure I could keep ignoring it much longer. 2 days after the meeting with Trevor, a white envelope appeared in my mailbox, a notice from a loan company I had never heard of. At first, I assumed it was junk mail, but then I saw my name printed in bold letters next to an amount that made my knees weaken. According to the letter, I had taken out a loan I never applied for. My hands shook as I read the fine print. The interest rate alone felt like a threat. I sat down on the porch steps, breathing slowly. A neighbor's dog barked from across the street, usually an annoyance, but today it sounded like an alarm bell. I dialed Dylan. Oh, that. Yeah, Mom, it's a mistake, he said too quickly. These places always screw up paperwork. But why would they have my name? Because it's a mistake, he repeated, like saying it louder made it true. Don't worry about it, I'll handle it. But his voice wasn't steady. There was a tremor under each word. After we hung up, I went inside, poured myself water, and tried to ignore the ache building behind my ribs. An hour later, the phone rang again, this time from the bank. Mrs. Harrison, the woman said, we need clarification regarding the collateral listed on your recent inquiry. There seems to be a potential risk of property. I didn't hear the rest. My vision blurred. My breath hitched. The room tilted. I must have made a noise, because seconds later my door swung open. Lily rushed in holding a grocery bag. Miss Marlene, I brought you soup. Oh my gosh, sit down, you're white as a sheet. The soup turned out to be a can of condensed chicken noodle, still in the can. She hadn't heated it. She hadn't even opened it. When I looked at it, then at her, she realized and gasped. Oh no, I swear I thought I... She grabbed the can opener, fumbled so badly it flew out of her hand and rolled under the stove. For some reason, that ridiculous moment cracked the fear in my chest just enough for a tearful laugh to escape. I'm sorry, she said, dropping to her knees to find the opener. I'm not good with panic situations, or can openers. I finally managed to speak. Lily, I think Dylan's done something serious. She froze, then slowly stood up. Tell me everything. We sat at the kitchen table. I showed her the notice. She read it twice, jaw tightening with each line. "This isn't a mistake," she whispered. For the first time, someone else said it, and the house felt colder because of it. After a long silence, Lily said, "You need help." "Real help? Didn't Mr. Gary have a lawyer friend or something?" My heart skipped. Gary's voice from months ago echoed in my memory. "If anything ever goes wrong, talk to Coleman." I opened the drawer where Gary kept odds and ends, old keys, coupons, a pen that barely worked, and beneath them, just where I remembered, lay a faded business card. "Coleman," I said softly. Lily squeezed my hand. "Let's go find him." But before leaving, I walked into the garage and touched the Camry's hood. "It starts here," I whispered. The glove box remained closed, but the truth was beginning to open. The next morning, Lily pulled her old car into my driveway at exactly 8:07 a.m., a strangely precise time for a girl who was late to everything. She hopped out, hair still damp like she'd rushed through her shower. "Okay," she said breathlessly. "I found the address. Mr. Coleman still practices law, sort of. He works part-time now, but he's definitely alive and definitely nearby." Her enthusiasm steadied me more than I expected. We drove to a small office building, tucked between a dentist and a tax service place. Coleman's name was on a fading plaque. When we stepped inside, I felt a rush of Gary's presence, old books, wood polish, and something warm I couldn't name. Mr. Coleman stood from behind his desk, moving slower than he used to, but with eyes still sharp enough to see straight through a person. "Marlene," he said softly, "Gary told me you might come one day." Those words alone buckled something inside me. I sat down, hands folded tightly. Lily perched beside me with a seriousness I hadn't seen from her yet, until she accidentally knocked over a stack of brochures with her backpack. They scattered across the floor like oversized autumn leaves. "Sorry," she squeaked, scrambling to pick them up. Mr. Coleman chuckled. "Don't worry, my assistant does that twice a week, and she's paid." The tension thinned just enough for me to breathe. I told him everything. Dylan, the loan notice, the push to sign papers, the fear clawing at my chest. Coleman listened the way good lawyers do, still, steady, absorbing every detail. When I finished, he opened an old file drawer and pulled out a thick folder marked with Gary's name. "Your husband prepared something before he passed," he said. "He was worried Dylan might make impulsive decisions." "Impulsive," I repeated softly, the word landing with a painful kind of truth. Coleman continued. "Gary left behind documentation, financial protections, property instructions, and something else. He said you'd understand once you brought what was in the car's glove box." My throat tightened. "I haven't opened it yet." "You will," he said gently, "and when you do, bring whatever's inside back to me." Lily leaned in. "Should we open it now? Like immediately? Because I'm very good at glove boxes. They usually just—" Her hand mimed a dramatic yank, and she accidentally hit the lamp on Coleman's desk. It wobbled violently. She froze, eyes wide, waiting for disaster. Both Coleman and I instinctively reached out and steadied it in time. Lily exhaled. "Okay, maybe I'm not good at glove boxes or lamps." Even Coleman laughed. A small laugh, but real. Then his expression turned serious again. "Marlene, until we know exactly what Dylan signed or arranged, don't sign anything else. Don't transfer anything. Don't talk to Trevor again." I nodded slowly, a mix of fear and relief settling into my bones. As we left the office, Lily unlocked her car and looked at me with determination far bigger than her frame. "You're not alone," she said. "Whatever's in that glove box, we'll deal with it." I looked toward my home, toward the garage where the Camry sat waiting. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow I would finally open it. The next morning felt strangely bright, the kind of Florida morning where the sun is too cheerful for the mood inside your chest. I woke determined. Today I would open the glove box. Today I would finally face whatever Gary had left for me. But fate didn't wait for me. I was halfway through buttering a piece of toast when a car door slammed outside. Dylan's voice floated in, too loud, too upbeat. "Mom? You home?" My stomach tightened. He never sounded cheerful unless he wanted something. He stepped into the kitchen without waiting for an invitation, holding a folder and jingling keys in his hand like a salesman about to close a deal. "Great news," he said. "I sold the Camry." The toast slipped from my fingers. "You, what?" "Sold it," he repeated casually. "Got a good price, too. I told the buyer he could pick it up today, so I already handed over the keys this morning." I felt the floor tilt under me. You had no right, I whispered. That car wasn't yours. Dylan rolled his eyes. Mom, we've talked about this. You barely drive. It's unsafe, honestly. And this way we get some breathing room with bills. We? I asked quietly. Or you? His face twitched. Barely, but I saw it. Haley walked in behind him, holding Max while scrolling on her phone. She said brightly, the buyer seemed super nice. He even complimented Dylan's negotiation skills. Max, oblivious to the tension, reached for the butter knife on the table. Haley yelped and yanked it away so fast she knocked over a jar of strawberry jam. It splattered across her sweater in a perfect, bright red starburst. She stared at it in horror. Seriously, this is my only clean top. Even in shock, a tiny laugh pressed against my chest. Max clapped like he had orchestrated the whole disaster. But the laugh never escaped. The ache was too big. I walked past them, out through the laundry room and into the garage. The space felt wrong, too open, too empty. The Camry's absence hit me like a blow. Gary's spot, Gary's seat, Gary's last message to me. Gone. Dylan followed me in. Mom, you're overreacting. It's just a car. Just a car. The words sliced through me. I turned to him, tears blurring the concrete floor. Your father told me to open the glove box. There was something important inside. Dylan blinked, thrown off for the first time. What? There was nothing in there. Maybe some old receipts or trash. I didn't check. My heart dropped. You didn't look, he shrugged. Why would I? It's junk. Gary's voice echoed inside me. If anything happens, check the glove box. Dylan wiped his hands on his jeans impatiently. Mom, please don't make this dramatic. We needed the money. End of story. But it wasn't the end. Behind Dylan, Max waddled into the garage, picked up the roll of paper towels from the shelf and, trying to help, pulled the entire roll loose. It unraveled around his tiny legs like a mummy. For one small moment, the absurdity softened the edges of my grief. But when I looked at Dylan again, the cold, practical expression on his face told me everything I needed to know. My son had crossed a line, and Gary's last wish might be lost forever. Unless the buyer hadn't checked the glove box either. A tiny spark flickered to life. Hope, thin, trembling, still existed. For the rest of that day, I moved through the house like a ghost. Every step echoed against the emptiness Gary left behind, and now the space where his car once sat felt like a fresh wound. By morning, I barely had the courage to check my phone. But there was a new message from Lily. Saw something weird. Call me. Urgent but not life-threatening. Only Lily would text like that. When I called, she spoke in a rush. Miss Marlene, I think I saw your Camry at the restaurant, behind the dumpsters. I know it sounds crazy. Don't panic. It's not in the dumpster. It's just parked. My heart thudded. Are you sure? Yes. I walked out during my break and saw a silver Camry with a tiny scratch on the front bumper. The exact same one your husband always blamed on raccoons. I let out a small breath. Gary had blamed raccoons. We both knew it was a mailbox he misjudged one evening, but he never admitted it. I'm coming, I said. She insisted on driving me. No offense, but I don't trust your energy right now. You're in your ready-to-faint era. I didn't have the strength to argue. When we arrived behind the restaurant, I saw it. The Camry, dusty but unmistakably ours. My knees weakened as if Gary himself were sitting in the passenger seat, smiling at my disbelief. The restaurant owner, Mr. Dalton, stepped out the back door carrying a tray of lemons. He stopped mid-step when he saw us. Oh, you hear about the car? He asked. Just bought it yesterday from a young guy. Said it was his dad's. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course Dylan had said that. I need to check something inside, I said softly. Sure thing, he answered, fishing the keys from his apron pocket. Longest lemon delivery ever, he muttered to himself, walking over. I squeezed half the tray already. He unlocked the door and stepped aside. My hands trembled as I slid into the driver's seat. The familiar smell, old leather, faint cologne, hit me so hard tears immediately welled. I reached for the glove box. Before I could pull it, Lily tried to whisper, You want me to record this? You know, just in case? She meant well, but she whispered like a foghorn. Mr. Dalton blinked. Record what? Are you two doing crime right now? Lily turned bright red. No, she's, reclaiming emotional property. Somehow, in my heartbreak, a tiny laugh escaped. Finally, I opened the glove box. Inside, untouched, exactly where Gary left it, was the thick beige envelope with his handwriting. My breath caught. A sound between a sob and a prayer escaped my lips. It's here, I whispered. The world blurred around me. Lily gently rested her hand on my shoulder. Mr. Dalton quietly walked away to give us space, though a second later we heard him trip over a lemon he'd dropped earlier. It should have been funny, and somehow, it was. Soft, bittersweet. We walked back to the car together, envelope pressed against my heart. "I need to take this to Coleman," I said. Lily nodded. "I'll drive, and this time I promise not to hit any shopping carts." She immediately tripped on absolutely nothing. I smiled through tears. "One disaster at a time, sweetheart." But in my hands, I finally held Gary's truth. Coleman's office felt different the second time I walked in, like the air already knew something was about to change. I held the beige envelope close, my fingers pressing into the curved edges until they shook. Coleman stood slowly when he saw me. "You found it," he said, voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. I nodded and handed it over. Lily sat beside me again, determined to be supportive, though she was already fidgeting with the chair lever, accidentally lowering herself 2 inches every few seconds. By the time she noticed, she was practically at knee level. She whispered, "Is it just me, or is this chair sinking?" I shushed her softly, but Coleman hid a smile behind his glasses. He opened the envelope. Inside were several documents, folded neatly, wrapped around a handwritten letter. Coleman unfolded the letter first and glanced at the beginning. "This is for you," he said, and he passed the pages into my trembling hands. Gary's handwriting, slanted, patient, familiar, pulled me straight back into our life together. The notes he left on the fridge, the birthday cards he wrote too early, the shopping lists where he always slipped in get ice cream at the end. I read quietly. "If you're reading this, something happened faster than I hoped. I didn't want fear to guide my choices, but I wanted to protect you from anything reckless Dylan might do. He loves you, but he moves too quickly, and pressure makes him blind. I want you to have peace, not battles." My vision blurred. "The documents inside will help Coleman secure your rights. If Dylan ever signs your name on something or tries to move assets without your say, these papers will block him. I'm sorry to even imagine that possibility, but love means preparing for the things we pray never come." I pressed the letter to my chest. It felt like Gary's final embrace. Coleman cleared his throat, pulling my attention to the remaining documents. Legal filings, notarized instructions, a record of an insurance clause that protected me directly, and evidence of Dylan's unauthorized loan signatures. "This is enough to open a case," Coleman said. "Not to punish your son for the sake of punishing him, only to ensure he can't harm you financially." My stomach twisted. I never wanted it to come to this. "No mother does," he said softly. "But a boundary sometimes saves the relationship, even when it hurts." Lily sniffled beside me, wiping her nose on a tissue, except she missed and wiped her cheek instead, leaving a streak. She caught me staring and groaned. "Pretend you didn't see that." I squeezed her hand. "I appreciate you, sweetheart." Just then her phone buzzed loudly, so loudly it echoed like a fire alarm. She jumped, nearly tossing the phone into the air. "Sorry, it's my manager. He wants to know why I'm late. Should I say legal emergency, or is that too dramatic?" Coleman chuckled. "Tell him you're supporting a client. Very official." She grinned. "Oh my gosh, yes. I'm basically a sidekick now." But the light moment faded as Coleman slid one final document toward me. "This one," he said, tapping the edge, "proves Dylan attempted to use your house as collateral." My breath evaporated. Gary had been right. Dylan had crossed more than a line. He had crossed into betrayal. Coleman leaned back. "With your permission, I'll initiate the protective measures tonight." I nodded slowly, painfully. "Do it." Lily placed her arm around my shoulder, and for the first time in months, I felt something unfamiliar but deeply needed. Power. Not the loud kind. The quiet, steady kind Gary always wanted for me. The next week moved like a storm, quiet at first, then loud enough to shake the walls of my life. Coleman began filing paperwork the very night I gave him permission. By the following afternoon, the bank froze the questionable loan under investigation, and the county office flagged my property as protected pending legal review. The first person to panic wasn't me. It was Dylan. He arrived at my house unannounced, pounding on the door like he was afraid it might disappear if he didn't hit hard enough. "Mom, I got a call from the bank." "What did you do?" The fear in his voice wasn't for me, it was for himself. A truth I'd been avoiding finally settled into place. I opened the door slowly. I protected myself. He pushed inside, pacing. You didn't need to make this a federal case. It's not federal, I said softly, but it is serious. He stopped walking, his face went pale. What did you tell them? What did you give them? The truth, I answered. For a moment he stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Then, slowly, his shoulders dropped. Mom, I was trying to help us. I'm drowning in debt. Haley's parents won't help. My job cut hours. I thought if we managed things together. You forged my name, I interrupted gently, and you tried to use my home to cover your mistakes. His mouth opened, then shut again. He had no defense. Before either of us spoke again, Max toddled in holding a slice of bread he'd dragged across the carpet. He offered it to me proudly. Snack? Despite everything, a small laugh escaped. Thank you, sweetheart. Dylan rubbed his eyes, embarrassed. He, gets into everything lately. That's what 2-year-olds do, I said. But you knew better. He sank into a chair. For a moment, he looked like the little boy Gary used to carry on his shoulders, afraid of thunderstorms, hiding in our bed after nightmares. But this wasn't a nightmare he could hide from. Coleman called during that silence. I put the phone on speaker at Dylan's request. Mr. Harrison, Coleman said, stern but calm, the investigation will proceed. The loan will be reassigned under your responsibility. You won't be able to access any property or funds belonging to your mother. She is fully protected under the legal directives your father prepared. Dylan swallowed so loudly it echoed. And, Coleman continued, there could be penalties depending on the findings. I suggest you cooperate. When the call ended, Dylan covered his face with both hands. I messed up. Really bad. Yes, I said quietly, but I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to save myself. He nodded slowly, ashamed, defeated, finally understanding he had gone too far. Haley showed up 20 minutes later, panicked because Dylan had left his phone at home. She rushed in, saw Max covered in breadcrumbs, and blurted, "Why are you eating carpet bread again?" Even in the heaviest moment, the absurdity slipped in and softened the air just enough to breathe. They gathered their things and left without arguing, without excuses. Just silence. That night, I sat on the porch with the warm Florida air wrapping around me. Lily joined me with 2 cups of tea. She spilled half of hers on the way out the door. But I didn't mind. You okay? She asked. Yes, I said honestly for the first time in months. I think I finally am. In the quiet, I opened Gary's letter again. His words no longer felt like goodbye. They felt like a hand on my back, steadying me as I stepped into a new life. One where I wasn't afraid, one where I chose myself. And for the first time since he passed, I looked at the sky and whispered, I'm gonna be all right, Gary. I promise. Spring arrived quietly that year, sneaking into Florida on soft breezes and longer afternoons. I found myself sitting on the porch more often, letting the warm light settle into my bones. After everything that happened, the world felt slower. In a good way. The legal mess took months to clean up, but Coleman guided me through every step. Dylan kept his distance, partly because the law required it, and partly because shame hung over him like a shadow he didn't know how to shake. But every now and then he sent short messages, simple check-ins. Not apologies. Not yet. But maybe the first steps toward one. I learned to stop waiting for him to be the son I imagined. Instead, I became the woman I had forgotten I could be. I started working part-time at Dalton's restaurant. Nothing fancy, just greeting customers, wiping tables, telling kids they couldn't put sugar packets in their pockets. Lily insisted on training me, even though she spilled more iced tea in 1 hour than the entire staff did in a week. The customers loved her anyway. Dalton gave me back the Camry, not to keep, but to use whenever I wanted. It feels wrong to drive another man's memories, he said, handing me the keys. But it feels right when you do. Sometimes I took it out for a slow drive at sunset. I'd play the old country songs Gary loved, letting the music roll through the open windows. I talked to him during those drives, not out loud but in the quiet place grief carves out for love. I wasn't rich, I wasn't young, I wasn't who I used to be. But I was standing, breathing, healing. And for the first time since losing Gary, I realized something beautiful. I hadn't lost myself.